Happy Wednesday, everybody. How you doing? It's Jay from the Effin' Marks. Thank you for tuning in for this midweek checkup in all that is going on in professional wrestling. So, the talent had a meeting and staff had a meeting at WWE headquarters this week. Morale is said to be at a very low point since the merger, since all those people lost their jobs last week. Vince, for his part, during the meeting, says to everybody he felt that the company had plateaued while he was away and they weren't growing anymore, and this merger with Endeavor was the thing they needed to jumpstart their creativity and get things back in order. Based off reports, we're hearing that this led to a lot of eye rolls within the audience. Well, let's see, Vince. When you were away, the biggest storyline in the last several decades actually catapulted through the stratosphere. Attendance at your live events did the same thing. TV ratings in general across the board are down. But for Raw and for SmackDown, they went up. When you have live events and premium live events, they are now the most viewed they've ever been and the most profitable they've ever been. WWE would have been the most profitable it's ever been while you were away if they did not have to pay back the government money because of your dalliances outside your marriage. How did they plateau? Was it just because you weren't there? Your ego couldn't deal with the fact Triple H does a better job at what you were doing than you do? Is that it? Is that it? I mean, you look at the numbers, everything he was saying there about them plateauing was completely wrong. I mean, it reminds me of Luke in The Last Jedi, where Rey says something to him and Luke's like, everything in that sentence you said was exactly wrong. He once again says it to Kylo Ren at the very end of the movie, too. Every sentence you said was exactly wrong. That's what you did, Vince. You said the company plateaued. Quite honestly, they were on a creative high with you gone. Again, attendance is up. Storylines make more sense than they did. You're making more money than you ever did. I don't see it. I don't get it. They did not plateau. I don't know if this is just you trying to blow a bunch of smoke up your new boss's butt. I don't know if this is you trying to pump up your ego. Either way, really stupid to say. You already have a bunch of people who have low morale because you just fired a bunch of their friends. So then you come out there and say, oh, by the way, we plateaued as a company, and it was because I wasn't here. That's a fun bunch of bull crap. But, the wheels keep turning and Vince keeps talking. Anyway, me and Brainless One will definitely get deeper into that this coming Friday at 6:30. You see that at the bottom of the screen there. So we will do that. Another big thing that has come into knowledge is that Randy Orton apparently has been at the Performance Center, and this has been for the last 3 weeks, apparently. His doctors had told him he probably shouldn't wrestle anymore. And Orton just isn't taking their advice. Orton has said he is a WWE guy through and through, and he wants to continue to wrestle. He has now been out of the ring for 17 months. Apparently, as far as his body goes, he's in really good shape, and it sounds like he is ready to roll. The fact that he's in the ring tells you that there's been a lot of progress since the last thing we heard about him. I want to see the Viper in the ring. I want badly for him to be. I don't know if a wrestler who's been wrestling as long as him will ever be 100%, but I want him to be as close to 100% as he can be. And I don't want him to go out there and risk his future, just to be in front of the crowd again. But this sounds very positive. It sounds like Orton is progressing. I want to see the Viper back. I really do. I'd like to see him back by the Royal Rumble. Heck, if he is back by Survivor Series. We have several things coming up. We have Fastlane not far away. We have the Crown Jewel not that far away. It's possible we could see Orton at some of these events. Again, if he's doing stuff in ring, that usually means you're pretty close to ready to go. And whether or not they have creative ready for him, it's like just putting Orton in the ring, they'll make something happen. I would say if they're going to do a feud with Cody needs to be either a Royal Rumble match or preferably a WrestleMania match. I would prefer them to hold off on that, but maybe he has somebody that he could wrestle with in the interim. Maybe he even teams with Cody. Coming back from an injury like that, one, his conditioning probably isn't going to be up to snuff, and two, to save his back from all those bumps, you have a partner with him. The partner can take a majority of the bumps and let him slowly work himself back into ring shape. What do y'all think about that? Yeah, Chris, Orton has definitely said several times he wants to wrestle till he's 50. He doesn't want to do anything outside of WWE. He doesn't want to be an actor. He wants to be a wrestler. It's something I think that he kind of was trying to shy away from when he was in his late teens, early 20s, and realized once he got into the business that he loved it. It wasn't what his dad did, because his dad would be gone for 300 days a year and going from territory to territory to territory. And Orton these days can more or less name the amount of dates that he wants to work. WWE will be fine with that. If he works something like Roman's schedule or less, at this point, more power to him, because any Randy Orton is better than no Randy Orton. And if he wants to wrestle till he's 50, I think he needs to take as few bumps as possible. Still love to see RKOs, though. Survivor Series would not be a bad spot for him to return, Chris. I think there is a lot of hype out there possibly for seeing CM Punk show up at the Survivor Series since it's in Chicago. If the fans feel let down that CM Punk isn't there, I'm sure they would be more than happy with having the consolation prize of a returning Viper. I think they'd take that in a millisecond. Yeah. Chris, I would love to see Orton come back as a heel, and this is a thing I've brought up on the podcast several times. If he wants to be a heel, he has to do away with the RKO. The audience just loves that move way too much. When he hits it on somebody, the crowd pops. And he could do the worst thing in the world to somebody, but within a few weeks, the crowd just starts cheering him. I remember that run he had where, he took the screwdriver and was messing around with Jeff Hardy's ear and did all sorts of crazy things to him. And there were a couple other performers I am forgetting at the moment, but he was just doing the worst of the worst stuff. But after like a month, the crowd started cheering him again. The dude at this point can do very few things to make the crowd just absolutely hate him. He takes away the RKO, which one would help his back that's just been, fused together. And two, you take away something that the crowd loves, and then maybe you have a shot. Maybe he brings back the skull punt or some variation, or uses the rope drape DDT to be his ending move. That would be a way possibly to get him not to get a face reaction. Do I want to see him get rid of the RKO? Absolutely not. But if he wants to be a heel, I think he needs to get rid of it. So, yeah. So I'd love to see Orton back, and I think we'll see him back in this calendar year. I don't think they'd have him fly halfway across the world. Again, if you got back issues and you're in a plane for that long, maybe it's not the greatest thing. But they've been saying the Orton's tour bus has been at the Performance Center. I think we see him pretty soon on television to set up a feud, and maybe he ends up not being just a surprise at Survivor Series. Maybe he shows up sooner than that. Maybe he's a surprise at Fastlane, which is happening in, 2 weeks? So one other thing I want to briefly touch on, The Rock was on SmackDown on Friday. Brainless One and I got into that when we did the podcast on Saturday last week. Since then, between the social media outlets WWE has, 103 million views. If you think people aren't interested in seeing The Rock in the wrestling ring, you got another thing coming. WWE usually is happy to tout getting a couple of million views. I remember when Brock and Omos were setting up their program for WrestleMania, and I think they had a couple million views on their YouTube video after, Omos kind of manhandled Lesnar. And they went on and on about how big of a number that was. 2 million. Well, Rock just got about 50 times that just by showing up. The fact that he's gone out there specifically on McAfee's show and mentioned WrestleMania 40, I don't think he'd say that if he didn't think it was going to happen. Before WrestleMania 39, you heard nothing specifically from The Rock, right? You never heard anything specific from him. This is the first time we actually have heard something specific from the dude. It sounds like he's ready to rock and roll for WrestleMania 40. He's 51. He's still in great shape. Quite honestly, I think he should bulk down. When he had the match against Cena, he ended up tearing a whole bunch of stuff in his abdomen, and I think he tore his abductor muscle also. And that's probably just from being so bulky and not having limber and flexible legs and body. I think he needs to bulk down a little bit and work on his cardio. And I'm looking forward to seeing a match. I mean, there's some stuff out there that I saw saying the hope would be Rock Roman at WrestleMania 40 and have Cody versus Roman for the title at WrestleMania 41. I think this kind of telegraphs what the ending would be at WrestleMania this year coming up. It would take away some of the suspense. Or if Rock says, hey, I don't want this to be for the title. This is just you and me. Who's the head of the table? I'm not going for the title. I don't care for the title. The title I want is head of the table. That's a way they could book it where the title doesn't have to be on the line, and maybe you could get the audience to not know who's going to win. But coming back to the point, 103 million people have watched that since last Friday. Absolutely insane. But all right. Wants to see Randy Orton versus LA Knight for his first feud back. Let me talk to you. Yeah. My only issue with that is when Orton comes back, he probably shouldn't be losing in his first feud. And I think LA Knight at this point has to continue his ascent, has to keep winning. I want to see that match at some point, but I think LA Knight needs to have more substantial victories before we get into that territory. Just my opinion. So, Chris Brown, what did Jarrett and Lagana say about The Rock? I mean, I saw some comments out there saying when he spoke on McAfee's show that it felt like it kind of was a dig at Cody and a dig at the story that we ended up seeing play out. I saw that story out there. And what I'll say about that is there were so many rumors that The Rock was going to go against Roman at WrestleMania 39. We ended up getting Cody versus Roman. Cody didn't finish the story. They had the biggest gate they've ever had for WrestleMania. And people were not complaining that they saw Cody and Roman. So when I hear stuff like that, I'm going to say negatory. And I didn't see the full interview in context, so I don't know if McAfee specifically asked him, hey, were you supposed to wrestle at WrestleMania 39? If McAfee asked him the question, like, if I'm The Rock, hey, it's okay to be forthright. WrestleMania 39 happened. It was record-setting. And I'm sure Cody would actually be like, yeah, whatever. If Cody's upset by that, like, I don't know. There are bigger things in life to be upset with. This was Cody's first ever WrestleMania main event. And there aren't a lot of people that could say they've main evented WrestleMania. So, again, I think all this is just petty bullcrap. So, you know, with The Rock, one, his character has always been a glory hog. All that being said, the dude deserves basically the accolades he gets. He's worked his ass off to get to a certain spot in life, and that's okay. He doesn't go in front of the live studio audience all the time. This was his first time in several years. If he was a glory hog, he would go to every WrestleMania, come out, do nothing, just to get a cheer and go to the back. He wants his stuff to be special. I get it. You know, make his appearances count. Stone Cold doesn't show up all the time, but when he does, he wants to be in a big spot. I don't see anybody complaining about Stone Cold. I think it's a little bit of jealousy and bitterness, if you ask me. Anyway, we will dive deeper into this Friday night, me and the Brainless One at 6:30 Eastern Time. We'll talk about these topics and so much more. Thank you for tuning in today. We will catch you on Friday. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you then.